I just about got everything finished up on the airframe here, on the airplane here. Got the floats all attached. I wanted to put the new float pump out hoses in. I went to town today to see if I could find some hose, and I didn't find anything that I liked in town. I did pick up 40 feet of polyethylene line, cut it and splice it for handling lines on the airplane, one on each side on the bow and one on each side on the struts where the rear struts attached to the floats. Came home and ordered what I needed off of Amazon, so it should be here in a few days. So I got a few other little things that I want to do. I'll go ahead and pull those clevis pins and stuff out of the water rudder cables and get those greased up and then get the cotter pins in them. I'm going to go ahead and go around and put more peralkatone on all of the bolts and stuff now that I've got everything all tightened up. And then I got to go around and clean up all of the excess grease and peralkatone that's dripped and got drapped all over everything, and clean my tools up. All my tools are all sticky from peralkatone on them. I just took the protective paper off the D windows and the upper door half, and I put the doors on. I got to do something with the stop for the upper door half there. The little catch for it for when it's open is not holding it up, so I've got to figure something else out for that. I finished gluing on the weather stripping around the lower door half there where it bends. I waited to do that till I put the door half on there. These were the hinge pins they supplied with the doors, with the door halves. It's just steel welding rod, 3/32 welding rod, copper coated. I got some stainless steel, 3/32 stainless steel. This is 316, which is pretty corrosion resistant. Well, I got that and made some new pins to stick in there. Put a little bit of anti-seize on them, and I've got those put in to put the doors on. I still got to take some cleaner and clean the residual adhesive and stuff off those windows, but they're clear. Looks pretty cool. The only one I didn't take off was the outside of the front windshield. I'm going to leave it on for a while. Keep it protected as long as possible. I got some poly line and spliced in a tie-up line there on that rear strut attach fitting where the diagonal and the rear strut attach to the floats. And then I've got a longer line set up on the bow of the floats here. Spliced it in around that front cleat and it goes back most of the length of the float. If we're going into a dock or a beach, we'll grab the line and jump out, keep the floats from hitting, and if we're going into a boat that's got somebody on it, then we can toss that line to the people on the boat to hang on to it. I've got one on the right float and one on the left float. I don't have a tie-up line on the left float. I didn't get quite enough line. I had 40 feet and I wound up with only about 4 feet left over after cutting the one on this side and the two long lines for the nose. But I don't really need one on that left side anyway. Almost all the time we're coming into a dock, we're coming in on the right side. Well, the last thing that I did was run a cable between the two floats. I got it hooked on to the cleats on the bow. That's a shin grabber, just to make it harder to get in there underneath the airplane with work on it when it's up on the dock and stuff. Something to trip over. Actually, it works pretty good for that, but the reason it's on there is because we only have one door on this airplane, and there are times when you need to cross over onto that left side. That you're coming into a dock or a boat or something like that, and the wind and the current has got you skewed or something, and you need to get over there to grab that other line or do something on that other side. On the 180s and 185s, I used to climb up over the top of the windshield and down the other side if I needed to, but the Cub is a little harder to do that, so I put that line across there. This is some 1/8-inch line. It's the stuff that was left over from actually some of the stuff that I took off from the airplane when I had to redo those aileron cables. I've got it wrapped around these bow cleats. I put a piece of vinyl tubing around it so it doesn't chafe into those and cut into those. And then I got another piece of vinyl tubing on there out a little bit farther so it doesn't rub on that little rail there, that angle. That line doesn't have to be too tight. It's not a structural item on there. It's nothing to do with stiffening the plane up or anything else. It's strictly to walk across, so it doesn't have to be too tight, but it gets to be a pain in the butt when you're doing 100-hour or changing the oil or something like that. It's like I said, that thing does trip you up. You got to step over it. So I can just loosen that turnbuckle up, pull the pins on that, and drop that cable out of the way when we're doing work on the airplane if we need to. That pretty much wraps it up. It's all done. We got it started and running, and it runs good. It idles low. I didn't do a run-up on it because it's in here in the hangar. There's too much crap in here to get blown around if I do a full run-up on it. But I did idle it down. It idles down to 500 RPM. And a mixture control works on it. It shuts it off. The fuel works. I run fuel out of both tanks individually and both tanks together enough to see that they work. Yeah, everything's done. All we got to do now is wait for an inspection and get it signed off. Well, I'm all finished with the plane. There's nothing else I can do with it. I just put the pump out hoses or tubes in there. I'd gone to town a little over a week ago to try to get hose or tubing for that, and they didn't have what I wanted in town. So I wound up ordering it on Amazon, and of course I had to order, I think that's a 50-foot roll. The irony of that is that I went to town to get it and they didn't have it, and buying a 50-foot roll on Amazon and having it shipped cost less than it would have to buy the amount that I needed to do the pump out tubes on the floats. So I've got plenty of it extra. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's really not good for anything else. I just went back and safety wired the turnbuckles back there on the water rudders. The turnbuckles for the flaps still need to be safety wired. I was kind of waiting for the helper of my mechanic to do it because he's got a lot smaller hands than I do, and since he's coming all this way and I got to pay him anyway, might as well have him do something. And I didn't tighten up the lock nuts on the flying wires on the tail. Wanted to leave that for the mechanic to do. I wanted to make sure he got a chance to check the setup on the tail and that it was okay with him before I tightened those down. Not that he couldn't loosen those up and redo them anyway. But everything else is done. One of the last little things I did was up here on this door. That latch for the upper door half wouldn't hold. That upper door half would just slide right off of it and it wouldn't hold it open. So I had to come up with something to hold that upper door half open. Well, I got a small piece of bungee and I crimped a couple of electrical connectors onto there, some eye connectors on there. They're uninsulated connectors, and I got the ones, they're heavy gauge. I think they were for like 8-gauge wire, and they're for number 8 holes in them, number 8 studs, because that's the size of the screw that came out of there in the hook that was on there. Anyway, I got a little loop of bungee cord up there, put that back in where the catch was for that, and then I took a piece of a little tab of aluminum that was made up for something else. I think it might have been for one of the labels that I was going to have made on the instrument panel. Anyway, it was just right. I folded it over and riveted it onto the frame there of the lower door, and that sticks down a little bit on the inside so it sticks out, and that loop there of the bungee will just slide right over that, and that'll hold that door open, that upper door half open. So that was the last little bit thing I had to do. Boy, reaching across that airplane to close that door is a chore now. That's a lot farther across there. Between the fact that the airframe is up higher on the floats than it was, and it's 4 inches farther across there than it was, it's a stretch to get over there to get that door closed. We got fuel in the fuel tanks and stuff, and all the hoses and the lines are nice and secure. They're tight. There's no leaks in it, no runs, no errors in that. I started the engine up and it runs like a champ at idle. I can't run it up in here in the hangar. I can't run it up till I get it out of the hangar and out in the open, but it does idle and start good, so that's done. So everything is all done there. Fall fell with a thud here. We went from 68-degree temperatures in the daytime and 62 or so at night, sleeping with the windows open and everything. It just overnight, the temperature dropped down to 52 degrees in the daytime and 46 degrees at night. Actually had to turn the heater on in the house there one night. Yeah, it's pouring down rain out there. Well, I went ahead and pulled the airplane in a little bit. It was sticking out in the front. Oh, I went ahead and closed that door. Figured there's no point in having it open. I wasn't sure how long it's going to be before we get the mechanic here to inspect it, but while we were closing the door, my wife said she just got a text from him and said he's going to try to see if he can't get tickets for this coming week, Sunday or Monday, to get up here. So that'll be good. But I got the hangar closed up now. It's not supposed to blow or anything, but that'll keep the peeping toms out of here anyway. So I'm all done with it now until it gets inspected and the paperwork gets signed off. It's finished. I've been working on cleaning up my hangar a little bit. I spent about 3 days in here with that, trying to get it cleaned up and get everything straightened up. And then it's going to take me a couple days to get the shop cleaned out and straightened up. And then I got to go up to the basement and get it straightened up and cleaned up. We still got plenty to do, but I'm done fooling with this airplane for a while.